What does retirement really look like? Not just financially, but emotionally and physically. It's a question we get a lot when we're meeting with clients. I am Mark Fricks, co-founder and lead advisor at MasterPlan Retirement Consultants. And today's episode of Retirement Roadmap, we have some special guests with us today to help discuss just that, Will and Jen Hagler. They've been with us as clients for a couple of years now, and I just love picking the brains of clients as they transition through retirement. So that's what today's going to be about is, what are the feelings going into it, coming out of it, how do you spend your time, things like that. It's things people don't really think about. They say, I want to retire, I'm tired of driving into work, stuff like that. But it's not so much until we get them in our office that we start saying, let's think about the emotional side. Let's think about physically, how do you keep healthy? How do you keep active? Things like that. So that's going to be some today. And also, we kind of picked on Will and Jen because they have had some interesting summer excursions as well. So we're going to be talking about that also. So welcome, Will.
Thanks,
let's start with you. Just quick background on your career and kind of how it led up to retirement.
So, Mark, I started with Cox Communications about 32 years ago, and I was a network administrator, and I worked my way up. I came to Atlanta in early 2000s, and I had left for a period of time to do consulting, and then I came back to Cox, and I enjoyed that ride for 32 years, and then it got to a point where we did we had the pandemic come up, and so we did a lot of work from home, and it had us doing a lot of self-evaluating. The commute, we had a substantial commute, and then I'll let Jen talk about what she did.
So, long story short, the first recession happened. I went to grad school. Finished that up, and then I've been in economic development ever since then. And then during the pandemic, it made me realize I don't enjoy a 2-hour commute.
Wow.
Going one way. It's just not a good use of time. It was stressful to sit in traffic. I love the work, and I love my coworkers, and that's probably the thing I miss most, but I do not miss the stress of commuting, and that's as simple as that.
That's a long commute.
It is.
And it's amazing how COVID changed so many lives in so many different ways. We hear that a lot. COVID kind of changed the way I looked at work, the way I approached work, made me realize that maybe work is not the most important thing. I tell a lot of our clients, I say, whatever year you retire, we all have a checkout date, right? There's always a year we're going to pass away. So every year you work is one less year of freedom. So whether it be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or whatever. And we'll have some clients come in, they're like, well, I'm going to go one more year. And I'll look typically at the female part of the equation, and they're like, no, you leave now. I want time with you. I want time with the grandkids and all that as well.
It's very interesting that you say that. So my father passed away I want to say about a year into this pandemic. It'll be 4 years this coming April. And so I'm an immigrant. I came to this country when I was 4 years old, and my dad had a very, very rough childhood. He lost both of his parents by the time he was I think he lost his mother when he was about 10, lost his father when he was about 5 or 6. And I don't want to say he was a straight urchin, but he kind of lived on the streets for a little bit until someone found him, and then he basically grew up in an orphanage and a boarding house. So when he was doing that, he had nothing. Mark, when I say nothing, and it makes me cry, but he had nothing. And then the one thing he wanted to do when he first heard about America was he wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. And so when Will and I got engaged, and Will knows all about my family's history, and I said, Will, my dad, he's battled cancer. And when he retired, because he was forced to, he said, I want to travel, I want to do this. But my mom has, physical mobility issues. So I said, well, let's go take my parents to the Grand Canyon, because it's something he's been wanting to do since he was 10 years old, and he's now, in his 60s. And so we're thinking okay, we're going to get an RV. We're going to drive from, Atlanta to the Grand Canyon. And my mom said, no, I don't want to do this. I said, Mom, there's going to be a bathroom. You could just go to the bathroom in the RV. And she said, no. And so my dad never did. And that during the pause of the pandemic, it made me real. And when my dad passed away, it made me realize I don't have a lot of time. I have to do the things I want to do while I physically and mentally and financially can, because my dad never got to experience that.
Yeah, it's about enjoying the journey. I mean, there's so much you need to do preparing for retirement, but you have a life ahead of that too. And what do you do with that time? And that's everybody's choice, of course. But it is amazing. Again, we work with so many clients and their different stories as well. So you guys, I'm not going to tell your age, but you're relatively young to be retiring.
Jen younger than I am.
Much young, no.
Much prettier.
But still, and you're young. You've been retired a couple of years now. So what do you think your secret was to being able to retire sooner than a lot of folks can?
I think Jen and I had a discussion when we first met about my parents and my grandparents, because my father passed away at 53, and I felt like he never had an opportunity to retire and enjoy life. And then his father had a massive heart attack at the same age. And so they were both the youngest males, and then I was the youngest male. So I'm like, 53 is going to be, if I can just make it past 53,
it's all gravy.
It's all gravy from here. And so I had a goal of retiring at 53. And so I talked to Jen. We had this discussion when we first met, and she said, oh, that's very noble. I'm thinking this is very noble. So I started living well below my means. I started putting money aside and maxing out my 401k, maxing out everything I could with the goal of retiring at 53. Now, I didn't make the 53 retirement goal, but I was able to retire a few years after that.
You didn't miss it by much.
Didn't miss it by much. So you have to have a goal. You have to have a plan. And so that plan was to not spend everything that I got, because it's kind of interesting to me when you go to buy a house. I remember buying my first house, and they tell you you can spend this much. And I said, no, I don't want to spend that much. I want to spend this much, so I'll have a little bit to save. And so,
as opposed to most folks that go in and say, I want the most I can get for every buck I've got.
Exactly.
That's how most people buy a car, a house.
A car as well. They tell you, you can spend $900 a month and you'll be right there on the edge. Well, I didn't want to be right there on the edge. So I think that's kind of where we started that discussion, which was we need to do some planning. And then we kind of lived our lives. We continued to work, and then we were able to get that plan, in place.
I think it also helps that he and I are both savers. So when we spend money, we do spend money, but he and I both have the same mentality of we're going to spend. We have that same goal. That's the thing. And I think it helps that he and I are both doers. We're both dreamers, and we're both savers. And I think that's a secret sauce.
And I also hear communication and intent.
Yes.
I hear those words as well. So that it's a team effort. So that's great. No, I appreciate that very much. That's really cool. So did you do anything special, before we get into your summer stories here, did you do anything special emotionally to prepare for retirement, or was it kind of easy to slide into it? Was there a struggle? Was there what are we going to...
I think the important piece there, and you just touched on it, which is getting on the same page. And so I felt that if Jen were wanting to have the latest automobile, the best house, if in the same situation, if I were wanting to have things. And so I think we agreed that we wanted to have adventures. And so we had that goal that we were going to go and do these things. We felt like if we get to the end of the race and we haven't seen everything that we wanted to see, then we're going to miss out.
It's amazing. I've heard that so many times is people that have experienced that. It's not the money you spend, it's the time you spend. Time can't be bought. Whether you're spending time in your backyard or in Europe or whatever, you can certainly spend money to get there, but it's about the memories and the experiences that you have. And so money can provide that as a tool, but it's not about, buying a great new car. Yeah, sure, that can be fun, but it comes with a lot of baggage and cost and money and things like that. And what is the experience? Okay, we go away for the weekend in the car, that's fine, but it's so much more about time and spending time together, which again comes back to, having the kind of marriage where communication and loving each other from a standpoint of what can we accomplish together as a team. So I think that's really cool. So one of the reasons we picked you guys as one of our clients to speak with is you have chosen at least 3 years now in a row. Is that correct? 2 or 3 years?
This will be our third summer.
This will be the third year.
Okay,
right.
Of some unique summer activities. So can you kind of give us the background on that and what you're doing and maybe a story or two?
Sure. We decided that we were going to volunteer at the national parks. We started looking at a site called volunteer.gov. And so we found some extraordinary places all over the U.S. that we talked about. And so I would look online, and then I would have a discussion with Jen. I would be like, well, do you want to go here? And so one of the first places we looked at was San Juan Island. And I had never, I'm thinking Puerto Rico, but it actually is an island off of Washington State, and you have to take a ferry to get out there. And so I talked to Jen about that. I said, do you want to volunteer for this position? They want a couple. You have to work 32 hours a week, and you have to have your own RV. And so we kind of started there. We applied there. We had a conversation with the ranger that was there, and he got us to come out there for the summer, and we haven't looked back since.
So it's like a 3-month time period. It takes you a month to get out there maybe if you want to take your time. And then
yes, we definitely wanted to take our time because we had a lot of things we wanted to see along the way, and I think we saw maybe half of them. So we took our time to get out there. We got there, we did the experience, and then we tried to get back before it started becoming winter because you're in the Pacific Northwest, and they have a terrible rainy season out there. So we wanted to get back before that happened. A few states you
come through as well that tend to have snow and things of that nature as well. So that would not be a
absolutely.
Good thing. So what did your day look like? Jen, I'm going to ask you, what did a typical day look like? I mean, was it just whatever needed to be done or what?
Yeah, sometimes our park ranger supervisor, who would say, these are the things that need to be done this week. But usually on a typical day, we would get to the visitor center. So we spent half of our day working in the visitor center. So answering questions, recommending people like, hey, this is a hike that you might want to do, or they would ask questions like, where can I bike? I'm like, well, depending like what kind of bike do you have, things like that. And then the other half of the day, it's what we do is called roving, which is basically you get out of the park and you start hiking around the park. You go to all the places around the park. I think they have like 75 miles of park that you could just roam around. And it's a wonderful way to see the park. And then when people ask you like, hey, where's a good place to go? You can give actual, first.
I've been to this
exactly.
waterfall, or I've been to this rock formation or whatever.
Exactly. And they kind of take, I think they kind of heed your recommendations a lot better than saying like, oh, I heard XYZ is a good place to go hiking or bike riding or whatever. And not only that, but you get to meet the people. Right. So the people who could come by.
That's going to be the best part.
It is absolutely the best part. I remember this one gentleman, his name was Teddy, and he's been there forever, and he would just invite us to his house to have a jam session or whatever. Sweetest couple, he and his wife and their adult child. But I would say that was a good day-to-day. We would just spend the day at the visitor center and then rove, and it's a great way to just get outside. And we also picked up a lot of rubbish, like dog poop, wrappers, just whatever. And we would help sometimes with the maintenance of the park. We would, push back or trim down blackberry trees because they're invasive animals. Or we would, Will, in his case, he would put out wildfires because he was a volunteer fireman. So it was a wonderful way to spend the summer.
Oh, really cool. We're going to take a quick break, just a little bit of a announcement or two here. Just want folks to know, as far as MasterPlan Retirement Consultants, we do have a great website, and folks that listen to our show and see it on YouTube and on podcasts know that anyone that listens has an opportunity for a complimentary consultation. It's a time to sit down with one of the advisors, typically me, but we have other advisors available as well. And it's a great time to, whether it be by phone, whether it be by Zoom, whether it be face-to-face, to really find out some of what you guys are talking about. What are our dreams, our goals, but also what are we worried about? What's going to keep us from making this happen? And so putting all that together is much different than meeting with somebody that's going to invest your money. This is the entire holistic approach. And it really takes a lot of the stress off of retirement so you can enjoy things like that. So if that's something that's of interest to any folks listening to us, MasterPlanRetire.com. You'll also see that on the screen if you're seeing this on YouTube. MasterPlanRetire.com. There's a little button, I think it's green if I remember correctly, that says schedule now, and you push that button. My calendar pops up. You get a 30-minute to an hour time with me to chat. I call it a fireside chat. I don't have a fireplace, but I call it that anyway. And it's a chance to really, again, discuss that. And then depending on how that meeting goes, there's a second complimentary meeting where we run a slew of reports. A slew is a financial term, okay? We run a bunch of reports to illustrate what can go right, but also what can go wrong. And the things like, what if taxes go up? How does that affect your retirement? What, God forbid, you lose a spouse? What does that do? I mean, so it's all these different reports that illustrate that. I would encourage folks to take advantage of that. At least you'll find out where you're at and what kind of barriers you might need to overcome. So again, one more time, MasterPlanRetire.com. Old-fashioned phone number, if anybody uses that anymore, right? 770-980-9262. So that was anything just that really stands out on that particular summer that you're like, I got to tell this story, or should we move to the next summer?
I would just say that we were so excited, or I was so excited about the place. You know, it was just a magical place because you're looking across the Salish Sea and you're seeing Victoria, and there was just so much beauty out there. You know, the prairies that are untouched, you know, they haven't been plowed, you know, with fields. But I was really excited about the place going out there. And then my best memories are the people that we met. And so the place became really secondary. You know, as we were kind of wrapping up, I remember having a little group get together, and I said, I really enjoyed, you know, meeting you guys. We still keep up. Jen really keeps up with a good friend that she's got out there. So I wasn't planning that part of it. I said, you know, we're going to be working with these people. It's going to be like a job. But we were so much appreciated, too. And we were appreciated well beyond when we were working, I felt, because we were there volunteering our time, and we were able to fill in. They were able to take breaks. And, you know, I'm thinking even nowadays with the challenges with staffing, they need even more help because, you know, especially volunteers, to be able to fill in, to work the counter, to answer questions, and help people.
And I would think with the government cutbacks coming, there may be even more opportunities.
Exactly, because they have to staff these positions, and they need to ensure that people are safe. You know, that's priority one, is to make sure that when you come out there, you're equipped, you're carrying your water. You know, if it's hot, you don't hike off 20 miles and then one way, you got to come back. That was a funny discussion we had because we would say the entire hike is X. You know, it's not, you know, one way. You got to make it back.
Right.
So
that's why I love those round trails.
Exactly. Exactly. Plus, you don't have to double back and see what you've already seen.
Only the other side. So what I heard, what you were saying, what I heard was, it's one thing to go somewhere for a week or two, because then you experience the place, but you don't necessarily experience the people. So the time there, the place, like you said, became still great, but the people became the most important part. And I think that is really neat. That's really neat. That's why, you know, it'd be so great to take a month or two long vacation, but even beyond that is working together and being a team, kind of like you do in employment, only a different level. So I really think that's neat. Very good. So last summer, a little bit different. First of all, I've never heard of that park. So I think that's kind of cool. I mean, how many parks are like that you've never heard of?
This is a historic site. So it's not a national park per se. And so there's 63 national parks, and these are the amazing places like Yellowstone and
hear more about
Yosemite, places like that, Bryce. This is a historic site, so it's been set aside by the government as an area of importance for the history of the country, and this specifically was set aside as a encampment where the British and United States, back before the the lines were drawn for territory were deciding that whether or not this was British territory or United States territory. So there's a whole, it has to do with a pig that was shot. And so this was the infamous place of the pig war, they call it. So you can Google that and you can learn some history on that. But we had never heard of this activity before we got out there, and we're talking about the pig war over and over again with people that came out there.
Yep.
So that's the important thing here. It was a historic site. There's over 400 of them. There's 63 national parks, and these are national treasures. These things are amazing. So I think we've probably been to a dozen, and so our goal as well is to see the rest of these national parks, and they're international. You know, they're in Alaska, you know, Samoa. So there's a lot that we need to see. So that's why we wanted to get started early as well. We're like, okay, I don't want to be in my late
65,
70s.
75,
Yeah,
80,
exactly.
trying to climb up a mountain or whatever.
That's probably going to be impossible. At that point, I want to be sitting back in front of my big screen TV and just enjoying life.
Your pipe and slippers?
Absolutely. Sure. Why not?
Okay. So last summer, tell us a little bit about where you went and what was important about that.
Last summer, we went to the Redwood National Park. So it's one of the few parks. It's a state and national park. It's in a town called Oric, California. And if you ever watch Virgin River, you know, they say it's, you know, based on that, but, you know, Virgin River's, you know, filmed in Vancouver or in British Columbia. But it's about an hour south of the Oregon border.
Okay.
It is beautiful. It's not home to the oldest trees or the largest trees in the world, but the tallest trees in the world. Collectively, the redwoods are about 5,000 to 6,000 years old. I think the tallest or the oldest tree in the park is like roughly 2,000 or 2,500 years old. And it was just, when you look up and you see trees that have been around since Roman times, that is inspiring to me. Like, and then so now you get this itch in your body to like, I need to protect these trees. I need to make sure that they're around for at least another 5 or 1,000 years old. So then you get to learn more about the trees, and then you get to start educating people about why we need to protect the trees. So we've had people from all over the world and come see these trees, and I would say, well, you're from Germany. They're like, yeah, we're all from Germany, and, you know, we have Bavaria, which is really wooded, but there's nothing like the Redwood Park. They said, if the United States does something really well, and it's called the National Park Service.
Right.
And it's a great way to see, you know.
Is that near the Pacific Coast Highway?
Yes, actually, it's about, the Redwoods is about, 5 miles from the coast. So you get to see the coast, you get to see the trees, you get to see all the elk, all the deer, all the bears. It's just a magical place, and it's really foggy all the time. It's just, I loved it. It's probably one of the best summers that we've had.
I've been to that area. I can't say I've been to that park, but I've been to it's a gorgeous area.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So anything that there, was it similar? You get to know the folks. You do whatever they need to be done and things of that nature?
And thing is, and it's always, and they're so appreciative, and that's the thing. Like they're just so appreciative. So yeah, we go into half the day is visitor center day, and the other half is roving the park, and you get a lot of. I mean, Will and I would probably hike like 10 miles a day, just hiking and just answering questions, picking up rubbish, and just educating people about what not to do and what you can do to protect the parks.
Really neat, really neat.
These people are very. I was going to say the folks that work there, their enthusiasm is contagious because they love the trees. They love talking about the trees. They love talking about the environment, and you catch this contagious attitude. So we were able to help them. Like I said before, we were able to fill in whenever they needed to take a break. We had between 1,000 and 2,000 people just coming into the visitor center every day. So we went from about 250 people at San Juan Island because it's limited by a ferry service.
Gotcha. To
people that just drop in and people that plan their trips or come from Germany or whatever that come to this designated place and they want to talk about the redwoods. They have questions. And so it was a wonderful thing to be able to help them. And I know they really appreciated it because they told us, whenever we were wrapping up.
Very neat. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. One quick question. What's next for the Haglers?
We're going to Maine this year.
Maine this year? Okay.
And then next year we're going to take a year off and we're going to try to do some international travels.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, So glad you guys could join us. We love having clients on as guests. I mean, a lot of times we'll have attorneys on for estate planning and tax people and Medicare people, but this is the most fun. So I'm so glad you guys could join us. You're some of our favorite clients. We don't tell any other client that, by the way.
No, I
That's
wouldn't think
strictly
so.
you guys. Right? So, but I do want to remind our audience of this episode. This is an episode of Retirement Roadmap. You can find us at MasterPlanRetire.com. Great place to schedule a time to chat. Don't put it off. I've got so many people that say, I've been listening to your show for 2 years. Your number's been on my seat next to me, and I finally called you. The sooner you start, the better. And it's never too late. We have people come to us at 75 and 80 years old that feel like they're running out of money. We need to be more efficient, and so we help them do that as well. So, again, MasterPlanRetire.com, 770-980-9262. And I'd just like to sign off by saying we appreciate you guys. And for all the audience, remember, plan well and prosper. Take care, everybody.